In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
Been looking for a quality brand of CBD oil and didn't know where to turn? Let me introduce you to Botan CBD. Go to botancbd.com, that's BOTAN CBD.com, and you'll see a full line of CBD oil products. The benefits of CBD oil are plentiful, including pain relief, anti-inflammation, mental clarity and focus, stress and anxiety reliever, and the list goes on. I've been using Botan CBD oil on my sciatica pain and it makes it disappear. You can rub it on the body or take it orally, and you can trust that Botan CBD is the highest quality CBD oil on the market. They are a pharmaceutical grade organic CBD, small batch and handcrafted for you. Head on over to botancbd.com and use the code Jimmy at checkout for 15% off your first order. Live life well. Botan CBD.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Once you go there, you can learn that we start off this show on Instagram. So go follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content right here. All my Jimmy Rantsers coming in right now. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay for up to 24 hours. After 24 hours, it does disappear from Instagram. So go and follow me on YouTube after 24 hours. We're starting to do some YouTube lives over there. I'm going to mix it up, you guys. So we start off on Instagram Live. We'll start off on YouTube Live. Sometimes we might even go on Facebook Live. We're trying to mix it up a little bit, give you guys different options to watch the show. You can always watch the replay, though, over on YouTube. So go type in a keyword search Jimmy Rants. You will find the show on YouTube. Finally, we have the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. All of these links, you guys, are at JimmyRants.com. Today's Jimmy Rants is all about this topic that's got people up in arms. So whenever people start to eat ketogenic, which is a low-carb, moderate protein, high-fat diet, whenever they start eating that way, something very interesting naturally starts to happen. Slowly you eliminate one of the meals, the 3 meals that you have in the day. Probably what starts off happening is you eliminate snacking. And then once snacking is eliminated, the next thing that goes is one of the meals. So maybe you wake up in the morning and you don't really need to eat breakfast because you're not hungry. So then you eat lunch and dinner. I know some people will do breakfast, lunch, and then not eat dinner. Then something very interesting happens for a lot of people. They fall into this very natural flow of only eating one meal a day. So this whole concept of one meal a day is known as OMAD, O-M-A-D, one meal a day. And what I want to talk about here today is why is eating one meal a day considered unhealthy? Because every time I've talked about where I have one meal in a day, people about lose their minds. They're like, well, what do you mean? You don't eat the rest of the day? No. Oh, you have to get hungry during the day. I don't get hungry. Oh, but one meal a day, that can't be healthy. Why? What's unhealthy about it? Well, you'll undereat calories. I eat plenty of calories in the one meal. Oh, well, there it is. You eat too many calories. And I'm going, really? Is that where we are? And to me, if it naturally happens where you're very comfortable only eating one meal in a day, why do we bemoan that? What is the deal? I think as long as you don't undereat calories in that one meal in a day, it's probably perfectly healthy. And I would dare say that most people that have been ketogenic for a little while, they eat 1, maybe 2 meals a day, and that's it. And of course, it freaks out people in the mainstream. Well, it's breakfast time. Why aren't you eating breakfast? I'm not hungry. Oh, but you must be hungry. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's breakfast time. Nope. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Why aren't you eating? I agree. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It just doesn't have to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can break fast pretty much anytime you want to. And so everybody loses their minds. But guys, I found a story about this couple in Texas, or excuse me, at Wichita, Kansas, that has gone to the Texas Roadhouse every single day for 15 years. You heard me. All they eat and all they have eaten is Texas Roadhouse, except for one day of the week, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Texas Roadhouse is where they eat, and they only go one time a day. One time. Some people don't like to eat the same food for dinner twice in a week, but Ron and Diana Watson don't have those concerns. When the couple walks into the Texas Roadhouse in Wichita, Kansas each day between 3 and 5, the servers immediately notify the kitchen to go ahead and start their dinner. With rare exception, the Watsons have ordered the same meal 6 days a week for the past 15 years. He gets the barbecue chicken and she gets the roadkill steak. The couple enjoy the Texas Roadhouse so much that they've trained themselves to eat almost nothing else all throughout the day and all throughout the night, not one single meal. They don't even have coffee in the morning. Ron Watson will drink water with lemon throughout the day. Diana will drink a protein shake for her breakfast. Apart from that, the food that they eat while sitting there sustains them until it's time to return the next day, always at the exact same time for the early bird special. They've been doing this, you guys, since 2004. So if you're just joining us here on Jimmy Rants, we're talking about this concept of 1 meal a day and why people think it's unhealthy. So I'm reading this story that's out of the Washington Post about this couple in Wichita, Kansas, that all they've eaten pretty much every single day, 1 meal a day, is at the Texas Roadhouse. It does not get old for the Watsons. They believe in the comfort of sameness. There's also a practicality to knowing exactly what, where, and when they'll be eating every single day. There are no decisions to be made, so no brain space wasted on making food choices. This is something that I talk about quite a bit when I get into the concept of why eating the keto carnivore that I'm doing currently, and within the context of keto carnivore, only eating about 1 to 2 meals a day, most of the time 1 meal a day. It's so easy. It takes the guesswork out of it. I don't even think about food anymore. When it's time to eat, I make my food, I eat the food, and I'm done until the next day. So this whole concept of 1 meal a day, people about lose their minds. And it's so funny to me now because as a very well keto adapted, fat adapted person, eating 1 meal a day is no big deal. But people think you're just starving yourself. They think you're going to be missing out on nutrients. They think you're going to, just all of these ugly, ugly things are going to happen. And the reality is none of that happens. None of those bad things happen. Here's what does happen. If you only eat 1 meal in a day, let's just say you eat at noon. So if you eat at noon, you're done definitely by about 12:30. And then you don't eat again until noon the next day. That's a 23-and-a-half-hour fast. And people just can't look at that without thinking you're starving yourself. They can't, in all their comprehension, come up with a reason why you're not hungry. But the fact is, when you're eating foods that aren't stoking hunger, when you're eating foods that are incredibly satiating and satisfying, and here's the thing I remind people of, when you eat the proper amounts and kinds of proteins and fats and minimal carbohydrates, when you eat good quality food, it's the micronutrition that is in that that's giving you satiety, that's enabling your body to feel calm, where everybody else gets hangry eating carbohydrate-based crappy garbage, as I call it. And so the whole notion of one meal a day has to be put in the context of getting your metabolism working right. So I would not recommend someone necessarily just jump into one meal a day until they become very well keto adapted. And what you'll find is you'll naturally fall into that. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about this concept of one meal a day. And I found this news story in the Washington Post about this couple who goes to a Texas Roadhouse every single day and they eat one meal. And that's the one meal that they have every single day. We really enjoy eating there, and I enjoy my wife not having to cook. He said she used to do all the cooking, but she found it tiresome and inefficient. So they simplified their lives with such precision, they no longer even go to the grocery store, they don't wash dishes, and they don't prep meals. How freeing is that for them? They're an older couple. They don't really want to mess with all the cooking and cleaning and prepping and all that. And they would feel just fine just going out to eat every day, getting the early bird special at Texas Roadhouse. And they're very happy with that. And they've become very accustomed to eating one meal a day. And they're not even explicitly keto. They're kind of keto by default, I betcha. So there is the happy couple, by the way, if you want to see what they look like. But they are very happy falling into this pattern of only eating one meal a day and making that meal at the Texas Roadhouse. They do skip on Saturdays because Diana, the woman in the couple, works late. And by the time she gets off work on Saturday, the restaurant has become too busy. So instead they go to Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. So when they're not eating steak and chicken, they're going to the barbecue joint. Yeah, I'd say they're pretty darn keto carnivore if you want to ask me. It sounds like it. Ron, the guy in this relationship, he's a Marine and Vietnam War veteran, became disabled with PTSD, recalled skipping a day here and there because someone is sick and there's an emergency. But on the days that they miss, they go and pick it up from the restaurant, so they still have their one meal a day. So, yeah. So let's see what else, if there's anything interesting in here. Diana calls herself a picky eater, so I don't recall getting bored ever. I know that whatever it's going to be good. They spend about $22 a day on their two meals between the two of them, and that includes giving the waiter a tip. They get a 10% veterans discount. So it ends up being about $540 a month. $540 a month is all they're spending on their food. So we extrapolate that. That's just over $6,000 a year for their food. That's actually pretty good. Now, let me be very clear. Is eating out necessarily the best choice in the world if you're going to eat one meal a day? No, because a lot of restaurants use vegetable oils on the grill and other such stuff. So not necessarily ideal, and I'm certainly not necessarily promoting that people only eat at the Texas Roadhouse. The point of this story is this couple has trained their bodies to be okay with only eating one meal a day, and I'm assuming it's a pretty sizable meal that gives them all the nutrition that they need for the whole day to last them till the next meal the next day. And that's what we're talking about here. One meal a day is not weird. One meal a day, I would argue, is a lot more normal than having breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack, midnight snack. To me, that latter eating pattern is so abnormal. Our bodies were never meant to be consuming that much food that often. But a lot of people have to do that because they get hungry. A lot of people, they don't feel well when they eat that way. They just don't. They don't feel well. But, that's the normal way. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I need to eat, but I'm not really hungry, but I need to eat. It's the most important meal of the day. Don't believe it. So Diana eats the roadkill. It's a cheese top chopsteak, no mushrooms and onions and cheese. She also gets a house salad with ranch dressing, no tomatoes. She does have a baked potato and then as well as a beer. Every once in a while, she'll get a salmon instead. Ron gets the barbecue chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, Italian dressing, and a sweet potato with only butter. Sometimes he'll get the pork chops instead. They both drink water with lemon. They've been cashing in on a Christmas special. And anyway, so the point being, this couple who's not even keto has already found that eating one meal a day is pragmatic. Eating one meal a day gives them all the benefits that they're looking for in convenience, in not thinking about food, in the economics of it all. And they're not even keto. That's the thing that was most amazing about that story. So for those of us that are keto, how do you react? How do you respond to the people who react to you only having the one meal a day? Well, hopefully people aren't noticing because, number one, nunja, because what you do with your body and how you eat is nobody else's business. The problem comes into play when someone sees you eat your one meal. And I've had this happen before, guys. I'll post pictures on social media of when I've had one meal in a day. Recently, we were on a speaking tour where we were in West Virginia. Christine and I did a book signing and a talk in West Virginia. And so the hosts took us out to dinner the night before. And I got, because I'm doing keto carnivore, 6 of their burgers with cheese and bacon. 6. And I posted that picture and I had a funny face, with me eating the 6. But that was literally all I had had. I had not eaten, by the time I got that food, I had not eaten in 34 hours. And then I ate that meal and then I didn't eat again until about 23 hours later. And it freaks them out. People are like, oh my gosh, look at all that food. No wonder you're so fat as a keto advocate. And all I have to say is nunja. Mind your own business. Because when you have one meal in a day, it needs to be pretty sizable. And you want to make sure you're getting plenty of nutrition. Definitely you want to get in ample amounts of fat. You want to get in ample amounts of the amino acids, protein. What you don't need is the carbohydrate. And so if you're eating in that way and your body is pretty chilled leading into that meal and then in the many, many hours after that meal, why is one meal a day considered unhealthy? Why is it considered strange? What is people's problem with it? And the only thing I can think of is they're kind of jealous they can't only eat one meal in a day. Because really there's no reason why anybody would be upset that someone would be eating one meal in a day. And you get that nice, beautiful 23.5-hour fasting period, which has so many benefits. People talk about fasting all the time, intermittent fasting. A 23.5-hour intermittent fast, you guys, is pretty darn hardcore if you just want to dip your toe into fasting and see how it works for you and see how it helps you. A 23.5-hour fast that happens as a result of only eating one meal a day, what's the downside in that? There's all upside. You give your pancreas a break. You're able to basically let your body have a rest. Now, yes, when you have one big meal, it does have to work hard to digest that food and all the processes that go into that. But to me, is it better to take 2,000 calories of a meal and eat it in one meal? Or to split that up into 1,000 and 1,000 and to eat those 2 meals, say, 6 to 8 hours apart? Because I think you get a lot more benefit when you do it all in one meal because of the very long period of intermittent fasting that happens in between those meals. Now, there's an argument that people would make, oh, you got to keep your blood sugar under control. Your blood sugar will crash if you fast for that long. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And especially if you get fat adapted. which this couple in this story that I read from, they're not explicitly keto. They're still having some carbs, but I would not be surprised if they're burning fat for fuel pretty darn efficiently, simply because they're eating one meal a day and having a 23.5-hour fast. I would almost guarantee that their bodies have become well fat adapted, even with the extra carbs. It would be even better if they didn't eat the carbs in their meal. But they are showing that you can get through the day without eating. Now, do they maybe go through periods of hunger because of the insulin response from those carbs that they eat? Maybe, and maybe they suppress that hunger, although you'd only be able to keep up with that just for so long before you give in and have another meal. Now, the lady, she has a protein shake in the morning, so she's not necessarily just eating at the Texas Roadhouse one meal a day. But the guy, he is definitely only eating one meal a day. And he's getting pretty good results. So, guys, the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is, why do people consider eating one meal a day, OMAD, so strange and so unhealthy? Because honestly, if you're going to choose a way of eating, I would choose a low-carb, high-fat diet that enables your body to burn stored body fat and create ketones as the side effect of that, that would give your body the ability to go long periods of time without eating so that you naturally fall into a one meal a day pattern. That is far, far more healthy, far, far more pragmatic, far, far cheaper than eating little small meals every few hours, which is what most of the so-called health experts would have you do to ironically control your blood sugar and then give you benefits in your health. I don't know about you, but my one meal a day, sometimes two, but most of the time one meal a day is all I need to be happy and healthy. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in. And yes, I am here on Instagram Live. I was having a little bit of trouble this morning on YouTube Live. I only had like 2 people, and I'd been talking for 10 minutes. So I was like, well, I'm going to go where I know there's people. That's you guys here on Instagram. Roy and I have the same thing, says Bonnie Lene. We don't even want lunch anymore. When we are hungry, it's not a hunger pang. It's just we got to eat now. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Kimberly says, it seemed very unhealthy at the beginning only because I used to eat a SAD diet. Once I was fat adapted, it's easy and extremely healthy. And Kimberly, that's exactly it. When people try to do this coming from the SAD diet, it sounds like torture to only eat one meal a day. But once you're keto adapted and it happens very naturally and spontaneously, it is truly a beautiful thing. Please address the Kerrygold butter controversy in your rant. So what's the controversy now, Health Truths? If you'll write to me through Instagram, send me a link to what you're talking about. There was a controversy last year, but I haven't heard about any new one that's come out since last year. Let's see here. Bonnie says, yes, my brother's numbers went down eating low fat and salads all day, but he was starving. Yeah, it'd be easy to starve. Charming Confessions just started OMAD last week. It's been interesting so far. Really enjoying it, though, and slowly adjusting. It does take some adjusting because when you're used to, and especially if you have a family, and you definitely have to feed your family at different feeding times during the day, you might feel compelled to have to eat during those times. So especially parents of young children, they got to eat. But just because they got to eat don't mean you got to eat. And I find it very easy around like 1 or 2 o'clock, to be able to fast all the way to like 1 or 2 o'clock and then have that one meal. And especially when it goes to 2 o'clock, then I go to bed at like 8 or 8:30. And so that's not that many hours after I'm done eating that I'm going to sleep. And then I wake up the next morning. I'm not hungry. I hit the ground running, doing all my work, coming on here on Jimmy Rants. And then again, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the next day, there's my meal. And then when I have that meal, it's one really good, substantial meal that gives me all the nourishment I need for the whole day. Rinse, repeat. Beth says, Instagram Live, yes. YouTube keeps freezing. You're one of my best keto online friends. Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Yeah, I want to try to mix it up a little bit between YouTube Live, Instagram Live, and I would love to do some Facebook Lives as well to kind of get all of my social media channels engaged in this show. I rarely mention to anyone that I'm fasting, says Beth. Last time I said so because a buffet was being offered, my boss said, oh, that's so unhealthy, which then got me on my soapbox about why it is healthy. Yeah, no, people won't understand it because you've got to remember they're looking at it through the context of a sugar burner. And when you're a sugar burner, you're constantly having to eat because you're constantly being stoking hunger hormones that's making you hungry pretty much all the time. I never did understand how I would eat at a buffet and an hour later be so hungry. I never understood that before I went keto. And now I know abundantly all of those calories I was consuming truly were empty calories, because if I didn't get nourishment from them and 1 hour after eating was feeling so ravenously hungry, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense at all. I just had a ton of food, a ton of calories at this buffet, and yet I'm hungry again. And I didn't realize the insulin connection to all of this and all the other hormones associated with this pathway. It opens your eyes, that's for sure. Live and listen healthy. I leave them with their face agape and internal satisfaction. That's awesome. Beth says, I give the example of cell regeneration and compare it to trying to focus on an important project. If I kept saying, hey, Jimmy, 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 you'd be like, what? Because of all the something, interruption. Feeding yourself all the time has the same effect. Give your body a rest. Eat properly when you do. Yeah, exactly. Miss Margs, well done. I love doing OMAD. Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't think enough people in the keto world give enough credence to OMAD. Because I think OMAD or TMAD, 2 meals a day, OMAD or TMAD are some of the most natural things that happen when you go keto. And I wish more people in leadership, and I'm one of those leaders, which is why I'm doing this video today, but more of them would speak out and say, look, guys, you don't have to be constantly feeding yourself. Now, there are some exceptions. If someone's had gastric bypass surgery and their stomach's only that big, they do need to eat many meals throughout the day. Or if someone has some sort of disordered eating, they too probably need to eat various meals throughout the day. But for the vast majority of people, eating 1 to 2 meals a day when you're eating keto should become very natural. JS says, stay in your lane. That's what I say to him. Yeah. The miracle of keto. I had gastric bypass 17 years ago, so it's hard for me. So yes, thank you, miracle of keto. I was just addressing people like yourself. I think you're the perfect example of someone who should not be eating 1 meal a day. You eat at the appropriate times and listening to your satiety signals. I still don't think, though, even a weight loss surgery person has to necessarily eat 6-8 meals in a day. You could probably do 3 decently sized meals, get all the nutrition you need in those 3 meals. You flip my switch, light switch with the eating feasting method. It works. Thank you, Beth. I hope that helps. Let's see. OMAD keto carnivore should be a superpower because it's unlike anything else as wirehead. The added light autophagy effect is also a bonus. Yeah, autophagy is an interesting one because I don't think it necessarily gets turned on with intermittent fasting. I know there's several people out there, and the fact is none of us really know for sure how long it would take for the autophagy to kick in, but it's been generally recognized that if you want to get those autophagy benefits where you turn over the cells and you clean up all of those proteins floating around in your body, that it takes 72 hours of pure water and salt fasting to do that. So if you're intermittent fasting, will you get some autophagy benefits in that 23 and a half hours? Maybe. but I don't know that you're getting the full effects of autophagy unless you push it to a 72-hour fast. Do you eat before like 4 p.m. in the afternoon? Not too late. So Dolly, I try to get in my meal either about 1 or 2 o'clock. I try not to eat past 4. And here's what happens when I try to eat. And I've got another story I'm going to talk about here at some point about eating later in the day may be associated with obesity, that makes the argument that you don't want to be eating later in the day, which is why when I do one meal in a day, I try not to do it after 4 p.m. I try to do it somewhere midday, so anywhere from like 11 to 2 or 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock's about the threshold that I want to go with that one meal, because if I go later, then my body has to be still digesting as I'm sleeping, and that can mess with your sleep. George says, I only eat when there's true hunger. Sometimes I'm only hungry 1 meal a day. Mostly it's 2 meals a day. And George, that's exactly right. When you're keto, you fall into that pattern very naturally. I'm also trying to subscribe to the circadian rhythm. Unfortunately, I get mostly hungry in the evenings, but I try to eat earlier in the day. That's right. Bonnie says, my phone didn't alert me when you're on this morning. That stinks. Hopefully next time. Yeah, I went live on YouTube Live, and I only had like 2 people. I was on like 10 minutes and 2 people, and I'm going, I'll get better engagement if I go to Instagram. So that's why I popped back on here again. Kitty Caddick says, I can't imagine eating more than 2 meals a day. No, it doesn't make sense. Because, guys, when you eat. I think it's so sad, all of these low-fat people, that when they eat, they feel like they have to have a little rabbit food. And then they wonder why they're hungry. I just ate. Well, yeah, you didn't eat anything nourishing. So when you eat. And then when you're able to eat, here's the litmus test for whether you ate enough in your meal. If you eat a meal and you're hungry less than 6 hours after eating, you didn't eat enough food and probably not enough fat in that meal. And so make sure when you eat. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. Marla says, I was hungry 24/7 all my life until keto. Now I can fast very easily. That's right. Amy says, I love my OMAD lifestyle. Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? Beth says, not eating several times a day helps your metabolism. Exactly. So instead of intermittent fasting, we should call this intermittent eating, because that's what we're doing. When you have 1 meal a day, you're intermittent eating. Fasting is the norm, and then you're intermittently cycling in an eating time. That's the way you can think about it. So guys, the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is we're going to have people who will rise up, and they already have, to try to make it so that eating 1 meal a day, OMAD, seems abnormal, seems unhealthy. And you know better, right? You know better, especially if you're keto adapted and you're getting the great benefits that this way of eating gives you. And one of those benefits is to very naturally be able to fall into this 1 meal a day pattern. I see my buddy Keto Island came on. You can't touch this. You do not want to see me rap. Okay, yeah, you do want to see me rap. My music hits me so hard, makes me say, oh my Lord, thank you for blessing me with a mind to rhyme and too high it feels good. I'm going to stop now, because you don't want to hear me rap on Jimmy Rants. But you got it anyway. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, pop on over to JimmyRants.com. You can see all the past episodes, guys. They're right there. We put them up on YouTube, and now they're embeddable at JimmyRants.com. We are shifting around where we start the lives, you guys. It starts on Instagram Live sometimes. It'll start on YouTube Live if I can get an audience to build up over there. I may even try to do some Facebook Lives from time to time as well. I want to switch it around because this show adds value. But all the past episodes, always, you guys, will be listed at YouTube. So you can see all the past episodes. If you happen to miss a live, if you miss Jimmy Moore rapping, you don't want to hear me sing Bohemian Rhapsody. That's in my karaoke repertoire. One of these days we'll do that. But all the past episodes are on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. And then we have the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Rants podcast over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. All of these links, you guys, are at jimmyrants.com. So until next time, can't touch this. We out of here. Mic drop.